My stroke is as a result of a congenital heart problem that was never diagnosed. So I'd lived with really high blood pressure my whole life, but that was never picked up.
The neurosurgeon at St Vincent said to me it was high blood pressure that did it, just a big explosion. And it knocked out his balance, his speech and his swallow.
In my case, I woke up with a stroke, so my wife was there, so I just heard to, wish her, what I'm in for, and said, you had a brain hemorrhage, and I go, oh, bloody hell, that's not good.
There are two types of strokes. One type of stroke is called an ischemic stroke, and an ischemic stroke occurs when there's a blockage to a blood vessel in the brain, and this disrupts blood supply getting to the brain. The second type of stroke is called a hemorrhagic stroke, and this occurs when a blood vessel in the brain bursts, and again this interrupts the blood supply getting to tissue in the brain. Ischemic strokes occur in about 80% of strokes, and hemorrhagic strokes occur in about 20% of strokes.
I had my stroke first, and then I started having multiple TIAs, and each time I had a TIA I got worse and worse. But what happens is you never know if a TIA is going to be another stroke, and so it was particularly scary.
So with a TIA, someone will experience signs, but then once the blood flow returns to the brain, those signs will disappear. So because those signs disappear, someone won't have long-standing problems after a TIA.
Woke up for work on a Monday morning and basically the left side of my body just fell dead asleep. It was quite funny because the day before I had actually done a half a marathon. Really active person, obviously didn't think I'd have a stroke, but luckily it was the wife who got a fast email that came through from the Stroke Foundation that we had a stroke in our minds, and found out it was a stroke, and hence how my stroke journey started.
I actually had the stroke, that was on a Tuesday. I had a stroke on the Saturday, and it just got worse and worse, and it wasn't picked up. The first doctor just sent me for x-rays because I had a sore neck, because it was blowing out there, and which obviously x-rays don't pick that up. On the Tuesday when I woke up with double vision, I went back to the doctors, and I got a different doctor, and she said, I told her what had happened. She said, poke your tongue out, and it had a 90-degree bend in it, and she just looked at it and didn't even say anything, just picked up the phone, dialed for the ambulance, and while she was waiting, she said, you've had a stroke, you're going to hospital.
There's a number of factors that affect how dangerous a stroke is. Some of those factors are how quickly someone gets to hospital and how quickly they receive emergency treatment. Another factor is the size of the stroke, so what extent of the brain tissue is damaged by the stroke, and also the location of stroke. The other thing to consider also is the general health of someone when they have a stroke and their activity level. All those factors feed into how dangerous a stroke might be, and also how easily someone recovers after a stroke.
The walls of a very tiny artery deep in the brain became stiffened, and the oxygen couldn't diffuse through. So that's why there was nothing they could do. As I said, I'm unlucky. You know, I was fit, I was healthy, on no medication, and it can happen to anyone.
I actually had 5 strokes in one day, and I didn't understand what was going on. I knew that there was some issue that was going on somewhere along the line, but I didn't quite understand what it was, and I tried to keep on going as normally as I could during the day, and that didn't work. By the time I got to my 3rd stroke, I went to sleep. So I was fast asleep at my desk, and it appears that I'd had 3 strokes while I was asleep. I wasn't showing any signs, I didn't have any actual disability at the time, and no one understood what it was, let alone me.
I had an internal capsule stroke, which had right-sided paralysis, had aphasia. It was hard.
Because the brain is divided up into different areas of the brain are responsible for different body functions throughout the body. Generally speaking, a stroke on the right side of the brain will cause problems down the left side of the body, and conversely, a stroke on the left side of the brain will cause problems down the right side of the body. There's also a number of areas in the brain. So for instance, a stroke in the back of the brain that controls vision is more likely to cause problems with someone's vision after a stroke.
I'm told it was caused through a severe knock that I took to the neck, and as it had tore the internal lining of the carotid artery, very rare stroke. So I'm told that in healing it clotted, and the clot somehow or other broke off and blocked the blood supply to the brain.
I was out having a drink with 3 friends that I knew through footy, and on the way home we turned around and saw there was an angry mob chasing us down. Apparently I was king hit from behind and kicked in the head as well. But then I woke up a couple of minutes after the fight and my life carried on 100% normally. But the whole time there was a blood clot floating around in an artery in my brainstem. Exactly a week after the fight, a clot lodged in a tear in the brainstem and stopped the blood flow going in out of the brain. And that's when the stroke came on.
I was obviously a pretty happy, healthy, fit 20-something and I was on track to compete at the Winter Olympics. I came home from having a pretty successful winter season last year and had routine knee surgery, and 2 days later had a blood clot in my brain and was rushed to hospital and spent 5 days trying to work out what happened. And now I'm on my road to recovery basically.